You did not have to do anything. That is the part I want you to sit with first before we go anywhere else in this reading. Before the cards, before the details, before any of the specific things Spirit is about to show me about what is unfolding for you right now, I want you to sit with that sentence because it is the entire premise of what is coming through today. And it is the thing that Virgo energy sometimes has the most difficulty fully receiving. You did not plan this. You did not engineer it. You did not stay up at night plotting the precise mechanism by which someone who worked against you would eventually arrive at what they are now facing. In fact, my sense is that you spent considerably more energy trying to be fair, trying to give the benefit of the doubt, trying to find the most generous possible interpretation of what was happening, long past the point where most people would have stopped. That is a Virgo quality. The precision of your judgment makes you deeply reluctant to reach a conclusion about another person's character until the evidence is undeniable, because you know what it costs to be wrong about someone, and you would rather absorb more than you should than judge prematurely. But the evidence eventually became undeniable, and what you did with it says everything about who you are, which is that you did not retaliate, you did not plot, you did not descend to whatever level this person was operating at. You simply kept going, kept doing what you do, kept maintaining your integrity even when it was genuinely difficult to do so, and left whatever accounting needed to happen to something much larger than yourself. That something larger has been paying attention. And today's reading is about what it has decided to do with what it witnessed. Let me describe what I felt the moment I opened this energy, because the very first impression was immediate and unmistakable, and I want to share it with you before anything else. I felt a shift. Not an approaching shift, not a shift that is on its way, but a shift that has already occurred, an energetic pivot that happened at a specific point and that is now settling into its new configuration. The sensation was similar to the feeling of something that had been leaning against its own weight, finally, definitively tipping over, not violently, not dramatically, simply arriving at the inevitable endpoint of its own trajectory. I also felt something in your energy specifically that I want to name because it is distinct and it matters. I felt relief beginning, not arrived, not complete, not the kind of full exhale that comes when something is entirely resolved, but beginning, the early tentative quality of relief that comes when someone who has been quietly braced for a very long time begins to sense, without yet fully trusting it, that the thing they have been bracing against may finally be losing its grip. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing what has been operating against you, and I want to describe it carefully because its imagery is specific and telling. This card shows a figure moving furtively through the dark, carrying 5 swords with a smug, sidelong expression, while 2 other figures stand in the background with their heads bowed in defeat. This is a card that in traditional readings belongs to the suit governing the mind and to a number associated with conflict and the aftermath of a struggle where someone obtained what they wanted through means that did not honor the dignity of those they took it from. I am sensing that what this person did against you was not impulsive, it was calculated. There was a quality of deliberate strategy to it, a plan that involved using information or position or access in ways they were not entitled to use it, taking something that was not theirs to take or dismantling something that was not theirs to dismantle, and doing so with the specific confidence of someone who believed they would not be caught, or who believed that even if they were caught, the consequences would not be significant enough to deter them. I also want to speak to the sword suit's connection to the realm of thought and communication, because I am sensing that a significant portion of what this person did against you was verbal. It happened through words, through what was said and to whom, through narratives that were constructed and circulated and designed to serve this person's interests at your expense. Reputation, perception, the management of how others see you. These were the weapons of choice here, and they were wielded with considerably more deliberate care than the casual observer would have recognized. The second card appeared in the position representing the energetic turning point, the specific moment where the trajectory of this situation shifted. And it is a card I want to give real space to, because it is the core of everything this reading is showing. This card shows a great wheel in motion, surrounded by figures ascending on one side and descending on the other, with a sphinx seated at the top, representing the principle that governs the whole turning. This is the card of cycles completing and reversing, of what goes up eventually coming down, and what has been suppressed eventually rising, of the fundamental and impersonal mechanism by which energy that has been sent out into the world eventually returns to its source. What I want you to understand about this card in the context of your situation is that the wheel does not require your participation. It does not require your anger or your intention or your cooperation. It moves because that is what it does. The person who worked against you set something in motion when they chose to act as they did, and that motion has been completing its arc ever since, moving through whatever time and distance existed between the action and its consequence, and it has now arrived or is arriving at the point of return. I also want to speak to the number of this card, because it sits among the major arcane energies that represent forces larger than individual will or circumstance. This is not a card of personal consequence in the small, petty sense. This is a card of something fundamental and cosmically ordered, returning what was sent. The weight of what this person is now facing is proportionate to the weight of what they chose to do, not because someone designed it that way, but because that is simply how energy moves through the world. I want to expand on something else. This card tends to reveal that I think is particularly relevant here. The figures depicted on the ascending side of the wheel and the descending side are exchanging positions, not disappearing. This is a detail worth sitting with, because it tells me what is unfolding for this person is not a temporary dip that they will simply recover from and return to their previous position unchanged. What is happening is a genuine reversal, a real exchange of positions, where what they had, the advantage they gained through what they did against you, is in the process of being redistributed in a way that more accurately reflects the actual landscape of things. What belonged to you, the credibility, the standing, the accurate perception in the minds of people around you, is returning toward you. What this person built on dishonest foundations is losing the elevation they gained from it. Does this feel like it is describing a real situation, Virgo? A real person, a real set of actions against you that you have been carrying in some form, perhaps longer than it was comfortable to carry? Let me know in the comments if this is landing, because I want to hear how specific this is feeling for those of you watching. The third card I want to address appeared in the position representing what this person is now experiencing as a direct consequence of what they set in motion, and it is perhaps the most specific card in the entire reading. This card shows a figure lying on the ground with 10 swords planted in their back, the sky dark above them, the scene carrying an unmistakable quality of an ending, a complete, final, cannot be reversed or reframed conclusion to something that ran its course through consequences that arrived precisely and entirely as a result of their own choices. I want to be careful about how I speak to this card because I think the temptation when we hear about someone who wronged us facing consequences is to feel something we might later be uncomfortable with, something that looks like satisfaction in another person's difficulty. I am not going to encourage that because I do not think it actually serves you, and I think you are a more nuanced person than that response would honor. What I will say is that this card is not about savoring. It is about finality. It is about something that was never sustainable, reaching the inevitable point where its own weight became too much to hold, where the structure that was built on something dishonest collapsed under the pressure of what it was built on. The ending this person is experiencing or is about to experience is not an attack. No one attacked them. What happened is that the foundation of what they built against you, the narratives, the strategies, the calculated maneuvering, turned out to be made of something that could not support its own weight indefinitely. And now the weight has come down. I also want to speak to the horizon in this card because this image, like all images in the deck, does not end in total darkness. There is a light at the very edge. Not for them necessarily, or not immediately, but for the situation as a whole, which includes you. The light at the horizon belongs to what becomes possible once this ending completes its settling. Inhale with me for a moment, Virgo, because I want to move into the fourth card now and what it showed me about what is specifically unfolding for this person is something I want you to receive with the grounded clarity it deserves, rather than through any lens of either guilt or celebration. This card shows a figure unable to move freely, surrounded by constraints, with their own thought patterns rendered visible as a kind of trap they have woven around themselves. The sword suit again, which continues to point toward the mental and communicative realm as the arena where this is primarily playing out. And what I am sensing very specifically is that the consequences this person is now facing are unfolding through exposure, through the revealing of what was previously concealed, through the specific uncomfortable experience of having the narratives they constructed examined in a light they did not control and did not choose. What you were told about or what happened to you is becoming visible to people who matter. The true version of events is finding its way to the people who were given the false version. I am not sensing this is happening through dramatic confrontation or public accusation. It is happening more quietly, more organically, through the natural process by which truth that was suppressed eventually finds the cracks and surfaces, because truth has a particular persistence in the face of suppression that dishonesty cannot match over the long term. I am also sensing that some of the people this person relied on for support of their version of events are beginning to see the inconsistencies, beginning to ask questions that are inconvenient, and beginning to notice the gap between what they were told and what the actual evidence suggests. And that process of people beginning to see clearly, once it starts, tends to move faster than the person who benefited from the fog would prefer. I want to address something specifically, Virgo, about this situation, because I think the way you have been holding this matters and deserves to be seen. Virgo does not rage easily or publicly. Virgo analyzes. Virgo documents, sometimes internally, sometimes literally, the precise discrepancy between what someone said and what the evidence actually supports. Virgo builds an airtight internal case before it says a single word, and then, more often than not, chooses not to say that word at all, choosing instead to maintain its own integrity and leave the rest to what is larger than itself. I am sensing this is exactly what you did. And I want to tell you something about that choice, something you may not have fully allowed yourself to hear yet. The quality of how you handled this, the restraint, the refusal to descend, the maintaining of your own standard, even when it would have been genuinely satisfying to respond in kind, is part of what has allowed what is now unfolding to unfold cleanly. When you stay out of it, you stay clean. And when you stay clean, the contrast between your character and theirs becomes visible to everyone around you without you having to draw attention to it, which is the most powerful possible outcome. I also want to address something about the specific cost of that restraint, because I do not want to romanticize it without acknowledging what it actually required of you. Maintaining your dignity while someone works against you is not a passive or easy thing. It is an active, daily choice that requires swallowing responses you were entitled to give, holding back truths you were entitled to share, appearing to move forward normally in spaces where you knew that a distorted version of you was being circulated. That is genuinely difficult. That is the kind of difficulty that leaves marks, even when it leaves no visible evidence of the struggle. I am sensing you have been carrying the weight of that restraint quietly, and I want you to know that the weight was real and the effort was real, and the fact that no one saw the effort does not make it any less significant. There is a particular kind of justice that can only be achieved by not pursuing justice, and you instinctively understood this even when it was difficult. Even when every analytical part of you had assembled the case and was ready to present it, you held back. And what is happening now is the result of that holding back finally fully paying off. The fifth card appeared in the position of what is now opening for you as a direct result of this shift in circumstances. And it is a card that carries genuine brightness after the weight of everything that came before it. This card shows a single figure standing at a height, having climbed something significant, with a view that has opened up that was not available from the lower ground. The number at the center of its suit, not the beginning and not the end, sits at a place of consolidation, of having done real work and arrived at a real vantage point. The wands in this card belong to the fire element, to movement and passion and the energy of things finally being allowed to go in the direction they were always meant to go. What I am sensing this card is describing for you is not simply that the obstruction is being removed, though it is. It is that the removal of the obstruction is revealing a view, a sense of your own position and your own trajectory that was being blocked by this person's presence in your path. You are now able to see further ahead. You are now able to move in directions that were either literally or energetically unavailable to you while this situation was unresolved. I am also sensing something specifically about reputation and standing, because the wand suit and this card's position in the spread both point toward the public arena. What this person attempted to do to your standing, your reputation, your credibility in the eyes of others is in the process of being corrected. Not necessarily through official channels, though for some of you that may be part of it, more fundamentally through the kind of organic restoration that happens when truth becomes visible, when people who received a distorted picture begin to receive a clearer one, when your actual record, your actual character, your actual history of how you show up stands in evident contrast to whatever was constructed against you. I also want to speak to something about what this clearing of the path makes possible for you going forward, because I think it would be incomplete to end this reading focused only on what is happening to someone else. The real story here is not their fall. The real story is your path being unobstructed. Whatever direction you were trying to move in when this person was working against you, whatever goal or opportunity or relationship or position they were interfering with, that direction is now clearing. The obstruction was specific, and its removal is specific. Where you were being blocked, the block is lifting, and the energy you were spending on managing, containing, and simply surviving the impact of what they were doing can now be redirected toward the things you actually want to build. I want to say something final before I close this reading, and I want to say it directly rather than dressing it in softer language. What happened to you was genuinely wrong. Whatever specifically occurred, whatever this person specifically did, it was not something you deserved. It was not the result of you having done something to bring it on yourself, and your sense that it was unjust was accurate. I know that Virgo energy can sometimes turn its analytical precision against itself in moments like this, finding ways to wonder whether the situation was partly its own fault, whether it should have handled things differently, whether its perception of what happened was perhaps overly harsh. I want you to set that particular internal questioning down for today, because the cards are not showing me something ambiguous. What was done against you was deliberate, it was dishonest, and it has now arrived at its consequence. You handled it with integrity. What is unfolding now is the return of that integrity to you in a form that is visible and concrete rather than only internal. The wheel has turned, the swords have landed in the appropriate direction, and the view from where you now stand is considerably clearer and considerably more open than the view you have had to work with while this was still unresolved. Breathe, Virgo, and then look forward, because what is ahead of you now that this obstruction is clearing is genuinely worth looking at. If this reading landed somewhere real for you today, please share it with a Virgo who has been quietly holding something unfair for too long and needs to hear that the accounting is coming. And leave me a comment below. I want to hear your story, or whatever part of it you are willing to share. I read every single comment, and I hold what people bring to this space with genuine care long after the video has ended. Until next time, Virgo, you did not have to do anything. And everything that needed to happen is happening anyway, because that is what integrity does. Eventually, it settles the account.